The warning buoy floated alone in the cold darkness of space. It was old, very old. The metal was black and covered with tiny marks from space dust that had hit it over hundreds of years, but it still worked. It still sent out its message, again and again, never stopping, never resting. The message was simple. It said the same thing in 6,000 different languages so that any creature in the galaxy could understand it. The words were clear. You are approaching human territory. Entry is forbidden. No exceptions. Turn back now. This is your only warning. Commander stood on the bridge of his massive warship. The ship was called the Inevitable Conquest, and it was the pride of the Dominion. Looked at the small buoy on his viewing screen and made a clicking sound with his mandibles. It was the way of laughing. Look at this, he said to his crew. A tiny machine telling us to go away. How amusing. Was tall even for a. His body was covered in hard brown plates that served as natural armor. He had 4 arms, each ending in sharp claws that could cut through metal. His eyes were large and black, like 2 pools of darkness set into his angular face. He had commanded fleets for 40 years. He had conquered 12 worlds. He had never lost a battle. Behind his ship, 399 more warships waited in perfect formation. The fleet stretched across space like a cloud of angry insects. Each ship carried thousands of soldiers. Each ship had weapons that could burn cities to ash. Together, they were the largest invasion force the Dominion had ever assembled. Commander, said a voice from behind him, perhaps we should study this warning more carefully. Turned to look at his tactical officer. Her name was, and she was young, too young, often thought. She had only seen 30 cycles and had never fought in a real war. She was smart, yes, very smart. But she was also careful, too careful. What is there to study? Asked. It is a sign, nothing more. Moved closer to the main screen. Her claws tapped nervously against her data pad. The humans, Commander, we know very little about them. They closed their borders 200 years ago. They do not trade. They do not communicate. They do not allow anyone inside their space. Because they are cowards, said, weak creatures hiding from the strong. The records say something different. Pulled up old files on her data pad. There was a war, the human war. It happened 212 years ago. Waved one of his hands dismissively. I have heard the stories, fairy tales to scare children. They had 6,000 warships, continued. Her voice was quiet but firm. They were one of the most powerful species in the galaxy. They attacked human space with their full military strength. And what happened to these mighty? Asked mockingly. They do not exist anymore, Commander, not a single one. There is gone. Their colonies are empty. Their entire species was erased in 11 days. The bridge became quiet. Some of the crew members shifted uncomfortably at their stations, noticed their fear, and it made him angry. Propaganda, he declared loudly. Lies spread by the humans to make others afraid. Think about it logically. If they were so powerful, why would they hide? Why would they put up warning signs instead of conquering the galaxy themselves? Did not have an answer for this. In truth, it was a good question. It was the question that every species had asked about humans for 2 centuries. If they were truly dangerous, why did they choose isolation? First officer stepped forward. He was older than and had fought beside in many battles. The commander is right, he said. Strong species do not hide. They expand. They conquer. They take what they want. These humans are clearly afraid of the wider galaxy. That is why they stay behind their borders. Nodded with satisfaction. Exactly. And now the Dominion needs new worlds, new resources. Human space has 7 habitable planets that we have detected from long-range scans. 7 worlds sitting empty and unused. It would be wasteful to leave them. He walked to the center of the bridge and stood tall. His natural armor gleamed under the ship's lights. The High Council has given us our orders. We are to claim human space for the Dominion. We will add their worlds to our empire. And if the humans object, he clicked his mandibles again. Then they will learn what happens to species that stand against us. What if the stories are true? Asked quietly. What if they really did destroy the... Turned to look at her. His black eyes showed no fear, no doubt. Then we will succeed where the failed. We have 400 ships. We have the finest weapons in 3 sectors. We have soldiers who have never known defeat. He pointed at the warning buoy on the screen. And they have old machines begging us to leave them alone. I know which side I would bet on. He turned to his communications officer. Send the order to all ships. We advance into human space immediately. Formation Delta 7. All weapons charged and ready. Yes, Commander. The order went out across the fleet. 400 warships began to move forward as one. They passed the warning buoy, crossing the invisible line that marked the edge of human territory. As the inevitable conquest flew past the buoy, something strange happened. The ancient machine stopped sending its message. After hundreds of years of constant warnings, it simply went quiet. Its lights dimmed. It floated there in the darkness, silent and still. Notice this on her sensors. Commander, the buoy has stopped transmitting. Good, said. Perhaps it finally realized that its warnings mean nothing to the... But was not so sure. She studied her readings carefully. The buoy had not broken down. It had not run out of power. It had simply stopped, as if its job was done, as if there was no longer any point in warning ships that had already made their choice. Deep in the dark spaces between stars, something was happening. Signals were traveling faster than light, bouncing from station to station across human territory. Automated systems that had slept for decades were waking up. Computers that had waited patiently for 200 years were running calculations. And somewhere, in a place that no alien sensor could detect, alarms were sounding. The humans had visitors. On the bridge of the inevitable conquest felt confident. He had made the right choice. The humans were clearly a weak species, relying on warnings and borders instead of strength. In a few days, he would claim their worlds for the Dominion. In a few weeks, he would return home as a hero. He did not know that he had just made the worst mistake of his life. He did not know that the warning buoys were not meant to protect human space from invaders. They were meant to protect invaders from what lived inside human space. And now that they had crossed the line, there was no going back. The ancient systems had recorded their decision. The sleeping giants were stirring, and somewhere in the darkness ahead, humanity was preparing to remind the galaxy why they had asked to be left alone. The fleet flew on, deeper into the forbidden territory. Behind them, the warning buoy remained silent. Its job was done. It had given them every chance to turn back. They had been clearly informed. They had chosen not to listen. 3 days passed. The fleet moved deeper and deeper into human space, and in those 3 days they found nothing. No enemy ships, no defensive stations, no resistance of any kind, just empty space and silent stars. Commander stood on his bridge, studying the reports from his scout ships. They had found the first human planet on the 2nd day. It was a beautiful world, covered in blue oceans and green forests, perfect for colonization. But when the scouts flew closer, they discovered something strange. The planet had cities, large cities with tall buildings and wide roads. There were factories, hospitals, schools, and homes, everything a civilization needed. But there were no people, not a single living creature. The city stood empty and silent, like the bones of some great animal that had died long ago. "Where are they?" First Officer asked, looking at the images on the main screen. "Where did they all go?" "Perhaps they fled," said. "They saw our fleet coming and ran away." "But where would they run to?" asked. "We have found 4 more planets since then. All of them are the same, cities intact, infrastructure working, but no people, no bodies, no signs of battle. They just vanished." It was a mystery that none of them could explain. A species did not simply disappear. They fought or they fled to somewhere else. They did not leave their world standing perfect and empty. Did not like mysteries, they made him uncomfortable, but he refused to show his discomfort to his crew. It does not matter where they went, he declared. What matters is that these worlds are now ours. The humans have abandoned them. We will take them. Commander, said the communications officer suddenly, I am detecting a transmission. It is coming from everywhere. What do you mean, everywhere? I mean it is broadcasting from every direction at once. Every planet, every satellite, every piece of human technology in this system. They are all sending the same signal. Felt a cold sensation in his stomach. Put it on the main screen. The screen flickered, and then a human appeared. Had never seen a human before. He had only heard descriptions, but the reality was somehow both less and more than he had expected. The creature was small, much smaller than it had soft skin with no armor or scales. Its body looked fragile, like it would break easily. It had only 2 arms and 2 legs, no claws, no natural weapons of any kind. But there was something about its eyes. The human was female, wearing a simple gray uniform. Her hair was dark and pulled back from her face. She looked old but not weak. And her eyes were the eyes of someone who had seen terrible things, someone who had done terrible things, someone who was no longer afraid of anything. I am Admiral Wei of the Terran Defense Initiative, the human said. Her voice was calm and steady. I am speaking to the commander of the fleet that has entered our territory. The bridge was completely silent. Every crew member had stopped what they were doing to watch the screen. Commander, Wei continued, we know who you are. We know about your conquest of the cluster. We know about the things your species has done to others. We have been watching you for a long time. His mandibles clicked with surprise. How did they know his name? How did they know his history? They had been careful to hide their approach. They had blocked all transmissions. They had used stealth technology. But the humans had been watching anyway. You were warned, Wei said. You saw our beacons. You heard our message. You chose to ignore it. This was a mistake, but it is a mistake that can still be corrected. She paused for a moment. Her expression did not change, but something in her eyes seemed almost sad. In accordance with the Sol Accords, I am required to give you one final chance. You have 1 standard hour to reverse your course and leave human space. Take your fleet. Go home. Tell your leaders that we want nothing from the galaxy except to be left alone. And if we refuse, said loudly, even though he did not know if the human could hear him. As if she had heard his question, Wei continued. If you do not leave, we will be forced to demonstrate why we created those warning beacons. We will have to show you why every intelligent species in this region of space learned to avoid us. We do not want to do this, Commander. We have worked very hard to forget how to do the things we once did. Her voice became softer, almost gentle. Please, turn back. Tell your people that the humans are not worth the trouble. Tell them that we have nothing they want. Tell them any lie that will keep them away. Just do not make us remember what we are. The transmission ended. The screen went dark. For a long moment, no one on the bridge spoke. The weight of the human's words hung in the air like smoke. Even found himself disturbed by what he had seen. There had been no threats in her voice. No anger, no pride, just a quiet, terrible certainty. And something that looked very much like pity. Commander said carefully, perhaps we should consider her offer. We could return to the Dominion, report what we have found and... No, his voice was sharp. We do not run from soft creatures who speak of peace. This is clearly a trick. They are trying to frighten us into leaving because they know they cannot defeat us in battle. But the empty planets insisted. The way they knew your name, the technology that allowed them to broadcast from everywhere at once, these are not the signs of a weak species. Turned to face her. His black eyes were hard and cold. I have conquered 12 worlds, officer. I have faced enemies with better weapons, larger armies and stronger defenses. and I have defeated them all. Do you know why? Did not answer. Because I do not hesitate, because I do not turn back, because I understand that victory belongs to those who are willing to take it. He pointed at the dark screen. That human spoke of peace because she has no other choice. She spoke of demonstrations because she has no real weapons. She is trying to win with words what she cannot win with strength. He walked to his command chair and sat down. All ships will continue on course. We will reach there within 1 day. And when we arrive, we will show these humans what happens to species that try to threaten the Dominion. Nodded in agreement. The commander is right. We have come too far to turn back now. The High Council expects victory. We will deliver it. Looked down at her data pad. She wanted to argue more. She wanted to tell them that something felt wrong, that the humans' words had not sounded like bluffs or threats. They had sounded like warnings. Real warnings from someone who knew something terrible was about to happen. But she was young, and she was only a tactical officer. She did not have the authority to challenge the commander's decisions. "Yes, Commander," she said quietly, continuing on course. The fleet flew on. Somewhere ahead the human waited for them, a small blue planet called Earth circling an ordinary yellow star. It looked peaceful on the long-range sensors, harmless, just another world waiting to be conquered. But in the space around that world, things were moving. Ships that had been sleeping for centuries were powering up. Weapons that had never been used were being loaded. And Admiral Wei was preparing to do something she had hoped she would never have to do again. The hour passed. They did not turn back. And humanity began to wake up. The fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sol system. 400 warships appeared in normal space, their weapons charged and their crews ready for battle. Commander stood on his bridge, eager to finally see the human. What he saw instead was empty space. No defensive fleet, no orbital stations, no mines or traps, just the cold darkness between stars. Sensors demanded. "I am detecting their sun," reported the sensor officer. 8 planets in the system. The 3rd planet matches the description of Earth, but Commander, there are no ships, no defenses, nothing. First officer laughed. "They truly are cowards. They do not even try to defend themselves." "Wait," said suddenly, her voice was strange. "I am detecting something, one contact, very small, directly ahead of the fleet." Looked at the main screen. At first he saw nothing. Then the view zoomed in and he saw it. A single ship hanging motionless in space. It was tiny compared to his warships. Smooth and simple in design with no visible weapons. It looked like a passenger vessel, not a... "One ship," laughter grew louder. "They send one ship against 400. This is insulting." "It is a joke," agreed. "They cannot be serious." But was not laughing. She was staring at her data pad with wide eyes. Her claws were shaking. "Commander, I am reading the power output from that vessel. And it is impossible." Her voice was barely a whisper. "The energy signature from that single ship is greater than our entire fleet combined, by a factor of 1200. The bridge went silent, felt the cold sensation return to his stomach. "That cannot be correct. Check your instruments." "I have checked them 3 times. The readings are accurate. That ship has more power than anything I have ever seen, more power than anything in our databases, more power than should be physically possible." For the first time since crossing into human space, felt doubt, real doubt, the kind that made his natural armor feel thin and weak, but he pushed it down. He had not become a commander by showing fear. "It does not matter how much power they have," he said. "One ship cannot fight 400. All vessels target that craft. Fire on my command." 400 warships turned their weapons toward the small human vessel. Thousands of plasma cannons charged. Hundreds of missile bays opened. The most powerful military force in 3 sectors prepared to destroy a single target. "Fire!" The space between the fleet and the human ship filled with light. Plasma beams cut through the darkness. Missiles flew in swarms. Kinetic rounds traveled at incredible speeds, enough firepower to crack open a moon, all focused on one small vessel. The weapons reached their target. And then they stopped. Watched in horror as every plasma beam, every missile, every round simply froze. They hung in space around the human ship like insects trapped in tree sap. They did not explode. They did not bounce away. They just stopped moving as if time itself had been paused. Then slowly they began to fade. The weapons dissolved into nothing, not destroyed, just erased, like they had never existed. "Impossible," whispered. The human ship moved. But it did not fly like a normal ship. It did not accelerate. It did not turn. It simply vanished from one location and appeared in another. One moment it was in front of the fleet. The next moment it was behind them. And in that single instant of movement, 17 warships ceased to exist. There was no explosion, no debris, no escape pods. 17 massive vessels, each carrying 5,000 soldiers, were simply gone. Empty space remained where they had been, as if they had never been there at all. Alarms screamed across the inevitable conquest. Crew members shouted in panic. On the main screen, could see the same chaos happening across his fleet. Ships were breaking formation. Commanders were screaming orders. Everyone was trying to understand what had just happened. "Return fire," roared. "All ships, everything we have." The fleet responded with desperate fury. Every weapon that could fire did fire. The space around the human ship became a storm of destruction. For 10 full seconds, they unleashed everything. The human ship did not move. It did not need to. Once again, every weapon simply stopped before reaching it. Once again, they dissolved into nothing. Then Admiral Wei's voice came through every speaker on every ship. "That was your demonstration, Commander." Her voice was calm, tired, almost sad. 17 ships, 42,307 lives. I have transmitted their names to your flagship's computer, every single name. When you return home, you will give those names to their families. You will look into their eyes and tell them exactly why their loved ones died. You will tell them that their deaths were meaningless, that they died because their commander ignored a simple warning. Stood frozen at his command post. His body would not move. His mind could not process what he was seeing. "I did not want to do this," Wei continued. "We never want to do this. Do you understand now, Commander? Do you see why we hide behind warning buoys instead of building empires? We are not afraid of you. We never were. We are afraid of ourselves." The human ship moved again. This time it appeared directly in front of the inevitable conquest, close enough that could see its hull through the main viewport. Smooth. Perfect. Not a single mark on it despite the thousands of weapons that had been fired at it. "We have weapons that you cannot imagine," Wei said. "We have technologies that break the laws of physics. We could conquer this galaxy in a single day if we chose to. We could erase every species that ever threatened us. We could become gods." Her voice grew harder. "But we learned something a long time ago. We learned that power without control is not strength. It is madness. So we chose to step back. We chose to stay quiet. We chose to put up warning signs and hope that no one would be foolish enough to make us use what we have." A pause. When she spoke again, her voice was quiet. "You have 383 ships remaining. You have millions of soldiers who want to go home to their families. I am giving you the chance to make that happen. Turn around. Leave our space. Tell your Dominion that the humans are not worth fighting. Tell them whatever story you need to tell. Just go and never come back." The transmission ended. On the bridge of the inevitable conquest, no one moved. No one spoke. They had just watched 17 ships disappear like shadows in sunlight. They had seen their weapons become nothing. They had faced something that should not exist. Looked at Commander. His mandibles were still. His black eyes were empty. He looked like someone who had just watched his entire world fall apart. "Commander," she said softly, "what are your orders?" Did not answer. He was looking at the human ship floating outside his viewport. Small, quiet, patient, waiting to see what he would decide, waiting to see if it would need to erase 383 more ships from existence. The choice was his. And somewhere deep inside him, the part that had never known fear was beginning to understand what fear truly meant. Commander should have given the order to retreat. Every part of his training told him to withdraw. Every survival instinct in his body screamed at him to run. But they were not built for surrender. In 40 years of warfare had never retreated from any enemy. He did not know how. And so, standing on the bridge of the inevitable conquest, he made the worst decision of his life. "All ships," he said, his voice hollow but determined. "Set course for Earth, target there." Spun around. "Commander, you cannot be serious. We just watched them destroy 17 ships without effort. They could end us all in seconds." "Then let them." His mandibles clicked weakly. "But if we are going to die, we will die as we will not crawl home in shame. We will threaten their precious planet and force them to negotiate. They wanted peace. Let us see how much they are willing to pay for it." The fleet began to move. 383 ships turned toward the small blue world in the distance. It was a desperate gamble, a foolish gamble, but it was all had left. The human ship did not try to stop them. It simply watched as the fleet flew past, and then it disappeared. For a moment, hope flickered in his chest. Perhaps they had given up. Perhaps threatening Earth had worked. Perhaps the humans valued there enough to let them leave with their honor intact. Then reality broke apart. There was no other way to describe it. The stars outside the viewport twisted and stretched like they were being pulled through water. The lights on the bridge flickered. Every sensor went blind. And once vision cleared, he was no longer in the Sol system. The inevitable conquest floated alone in empty space. The rest of the fleet was gone. In front of the ship, filling the entire viewport, was something that's mind could barely understand. It was a ring of metal and light, larger than most moons. Energy crackled along its surface in colors that had no names for. It pulsed slowly like a heartbeat, and with each pulse felt something deep in his bones. Something old, something powerful, something that made him feel very, very small. What is that?" whispered. No one answered. No one could answer. And then Admiral Wei was standing on the bridge. She had not walked through a door. She had not transported in. She was simply there as if she had always been there, standing 10 meters from his command chair, wearing her simple gray uniform, looking at him with those ancient, tired eyes. The bridge crew grabbed their weapons. Plasma pistols were aimed at the human from every direction. Wei did not seem concerned. "Those will not hurt me, Commander. Nothing on this ship can hurt me, but you are welcome to try if it makes you feel better." Slowly raised his. The crew lowered their weapons. "How?" he asked. "How did you appear here? Where are we? Where is my fleet?" "Your fleet is safe," Wei said. "They have been moved to the edge of space. They are confused and frightened, but they are alive. I wanted to speak with you privately before making any final decisions." She walked toward the viewport and looked out at the massive ring structure. "You asked what that is. It does not have a name. We built it 200 years ago. It is a weapon, the most terrible weapon ever created." Stared at the ring. "What does it do?" "It unmakes things." Wei's voice was flat. "Not destroys, not damages, unmakes. It reaches into the fundamental structure of reality and erases whatever we point it at: ships, planets, stars. We once erased an entire solar system in 3 seconds, just removed it from existence. The space where it used to be is still there, but everything else is gone, as if it never existed." Felt sick. His body swayed and he gripped his chair to stay standing. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because you need to understand." Wei turned to face him. "You asked why we hide. You thought we were cowards. You thought we were weak. You were wrong. We hide because we are too dangerous to exist among other species." She waved her hand and the viewport changed. Instead of the ring, it showed images, moving pictures of events long past. 212 years ago, a species called the attacked Earth. They hated humans. They thought we were ugly and primitive and did not deserve to exist. So they came with 6,000 warships and they burned our world. The images showed cities in flames, millions of humans running through streets filled with smoke and death, ships in the sky, raining fire down on everything below. "They killed 4 billion people in the first day," Wei said. 4 billion, mothers, children, entire families burned alive. They broadcast it across the galaxy as entertainment. They laughed while our world died. Her voice remained calm, but could see something terrible in her eyes, something cold and dark that had been sleeping for a very long time. "We had never been a violent species," she continued. "We had wars among ourselves, yes, but nothing like what the galaxy had seen. We thought we could reason with other species. We thought we could find peaceful solutions. They taught us that we were wrong." The images changed. Now they showed human scientists working in underground facilities. They showed strange machines being built. They showed things that made eyes hurt to look at. In our desperation, we discovered things, technologies that should not exist. We found ways to reach into the fabric of reality itself and change it. We built weapons that could end anything, and we used them. The viewport showed a beautiful planet with purple skies and silver oceans. Then it showed what happened to that planet. Watched as the world simply came apart, not exploded, not burned, just dissolved. The matter that made up the planet broke down into its basic parts and scattered into nothing. In less than 10 seconds, an entire world ceased to exist. "We did not stop there," Wei said. Her voice was heavy with old pain. "We were angry, we were hurt. We had lost 4 billion people and we wanted revenge. So we found every colony, every ship, every place where a single might be hiding, and we erased them all." She looked directly at 11 days. That is how long it took us to destroy an entire species. Not defeat them, destroy them. Every man, woman, and child, every record of their history, every trace that they ever existed. We were so thorough that most of the galaxy does not even remember their name. His legs gave out. He collapsed into his command chair, his natural armor suddenly feeling like paper. "When it was over," Wei said, "we looked at what we had become. We had turned ourselves into monsters. We had weapons that could end galaxies. We had the power to kill gods, and we were terrified." She walked closer to him, close enough that he could see the lines on her face, the weight of centuries in her eyes. "So we made a choice. We sealed our borders. We put up warning signs. We told the galaxy to leave us alone, not because we were afraid of them, but because we were afraid of what we might do to them if they gave us a reason." She reached out and gently touched. Her hand was soft and warm, so different from the monster she had described. "We are not good people, Commander. We are a species of killers pretending to be peaceful. Every day, we fight to keep the monster inside us sleeping. Every day, we hope that no one will force us to let it out." Her eyes met his. "You should have listened to the warnings." Commander returned to space alone. One moment, he was standing on the bridge of the inevitable conquest, looking into Admiral Wei's ancient eyes. The next moment, the stars outside his viewport changed, and he was home. Just like that. No transition, no travel time. The humans had simply moved his ship across half the galaxy as easily as a child moves a toy. His fleet was waiting for him, 383 ships floating in orbit around They were confused and frightened. They had been transported without warning, without explanation. Their crews were sending panicked messages, demanding to know what had happened. Did not answer them. He sat in his command chair and stared at nothing. His mind kept returning to the things he had seen. The ring that could unmake worlds, the images of the being erased from existence, the look in Wei's eyes when she spoke of what her species had become. Commander was standing beside him. Her voice was gentle. Commander, the fleet is asking for orders. The High Council has detected our arrival. They are demanding an immediate report. Looked up at her. She was young. She had her whole life ahead of her. She had tried to warn him and he had not listened. "I am sorry," he said quietly. Blinked with surprise. In 40 years of service, she had never heard Commander apologize for anything. "You were right," he continued. "About the warnings, about the stories, about everything. I should have listened to you." Before could respond, the communications officer spoke up. "Commander, the High Council is demanding your presence immediately. They are sending military police to escort you." Stood slowly. His body felt heavy. His armor felt like it was made of stone. "Let them come. I have much to tell them." The next few hours were a blur of angry voices and harsh questions. The High Council of the Dominion was made up of the 12 most powerful leaders in their civilization. They sat in a great circular chamber, looking down at like judges preparing to deliver a death sentence. "You lost 17 ships," the first said. His voice was cold with fury. 42,000 soldiers dead, and you have nothing to show for it. No conquered worlds, no captured technology, no enemy prisoners, nothing. "I have something more important," said. "I have the truth." He activated a holographic display in the center of the chamber. The images that Admiral had shown him appeared for everyone to see. The war, the weapons, the ring that could unmake reality, everything. "This is what we faced," said. "This is what killed our soldiers. Not a weak species hiding behind warning signs. Not cowards too afraid to fight. We faced gods, gods who chose to be kind to us." The council watched in silence. Their arrogance faded as the images continued. Some of them looked away when they dissolved into nothing. Others gripped their seats with trembling claws. "They could have destroyed our entire fleet in seconds," continued. "They could have followed us home and erased our world the way they erased but they did not. They killed 17 ships as a demonstration, a warning, and then they let the rest of us go." "Why?" one of the asked. "Why would they show mercy?" "Because they do not want to be monsters." His voice was heavy. "Because every time they kill, they become more like the thing that destroyed They put up warning signs and close their borders because they are trying to protect us from themselves. They are not hiding out of fear. They are hiding out of shame." The first leaned forward. "You expect us to believe this? To believe that a species capable of such power would choose isolation?" "I expect you to believe what I saw," reached into his uniform and pulled out a small device. "Admiral gave me this before she sent me home. She called it a memory crystal. It contains everything I witnessed, every image, every word, every feeling. Anyone who touches it will experience exactly what I experienced." He placed the crystal on the floor in front of him. "Touch it," he said, "see for yourself, and then tell me I am lying." The first hesitated. Then slowly he descended from his seat and approached the crystal. He picked it up. His eyes went blank for a moment. And then he screamed. It was not a scream of pain. It was a scream of pure, overwhelming terror. The sound of someone who had just seen something that broke their understanding of the universe. The crystal fell from his claws and he collapsed to his knees, his whole body shaking. One by one, the other touched the crystal. One by one, they experienced what it experienced. And one by one, they understood. The conquest of human space was canceled that same day. The Dominion all forces from the border. Ships were reassigned. Resources were redirected. The great expansion that had been planned for decades was abandoned without a second thought. But that was not enough for the Council. They wanted to make sure that no one would ever make the same mistake again. Within 1 week, the Dominion had built its own warning beacons. They placed them along the entire border of human space. Hundreds of buoys, each one broadcasting a message in every language known to the attention. Beyond this point lies human territory. They do not want war, they do not want conquest, they do not want contact, they only want to be left alone. For the love of everything you hold sacred, leave them alone. Other species noticed. They sent questions to the Dominion, asking why the mighty were placing warning signs for a species they had never even mentioned before. And the Dominion answered honestly. They shared the memory crystal with every species that asked. They spread the truth across the galaxy. Years passed, then decades. The story of the human encounter became a legend. It was taught in military academies across 100 worlds. It was used to explain why certain parts of space were marked in black on every star map. It was whispered by parents to children as a warning about the dangers of arrogance. Commander retired from military service. He could not lead soldiers anymore, not after what he had seen, not after what he had learned. He spent his remaining years in quiet contemplation, living in a small home on a distant colony world. Sometimes young officers would come to visit him. They would ask about the humans. They would ask if the stories were true, and would tell them the same thing every time. "They are not hiding from us," he would say. "They are hiding from themselves. Every warning buoy, every closed border, every message telling us to stay away. That is them trying to protect the galaxy from what they might become if we make them fight again." He would stare out his window at the stars. Somewhere out there, beyond the border markers and the warning signs, the humans were living their quiet lives, trying to forget the weapons they had built, trying to be better than the monsters they had once become. "They were kind enough to warn us," would say. "They gave us every chance to turn back. We were fools not to listen." He would grow quiet then, his old eyes distant with memory. Let us never be such fools again. And somewhere in the dark silence of human space, the warning buoys continued their eternal message. They were not monuments to power. They were monuments to restraint. They were humanity's promise to themselves that the monsters they had become would sleep forever, as long as the universe was wise enough to let them. The universe had learned its lesson, and the humans continued to wait, hoping they would never need to teach it again.